Good afternoon and welcome to UnitedTV. My name is Kemal Erkan. Today is February 23rd, 2024, our weekly Friday event. And today we have a special guest, Melissa Gonville from YWCA. She's going to be with us. Melissa, if you are able to join us, please. All right, there you are. So, well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So it's extremely exciting for us to have, we have our regular session, but when I have YWCA or someone from Brandywine SPCA joining us, it's always more fun, honestly, just because we are able to talk what we do for the community and what organizations are doing for the community. So just also we want to kind of get to know you a little bit. If you can just talk about yourself and give us some background, and then I have a couple questions after that.
Absolutely. So thank you again for having me, Kemal. This is great. I'm very excited about it. So I'm Melissa Gonville, as you mentioned. I am currently CEO of YWCA Delaware. I'm actually just coming up on a year in that official role. I was interim CEO for 6 months before that. And I actually worked in the banking industry for 26 years before I came over to the nonprofit world. And what else can I tell you about me? I've done a lot of different things there. I had done.
You were with YWCA before, right? You were the.
Yes, true. So while I was working in the banking industry, I was on the board of YWCA Delaware back in 2008 to 2014. I was board president for 2 years, stayed engaged with the organization, loved the organization since then. So really spent a lot of time, going to events, talking to the staff and the board members, and just really staying engaged because I have a very strong passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that just, it really dovetails with what the YWCA is all about.
So we want to talk about the impact of YWCA in the community that we live in. From personal standpoint, I know I put YWCA in a different place. It's one of those charities, in my opinion. It's actually the way that we are helping, you guys are helping. It's extremely meaningful in a way that there are people who may be in trouble in their lives, and then you are there, your organization is there to help them for that time being, for transitional time, and then help them and then support them to get back to their life. So that's really important. So this is not like a charity where you provide this ongoing support nonstop until forever. So that's why it has a huge impact, in my opinion. But I want to hear from you how the YWCA's impact, the work that impacts the community.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you brought that up because back when I was on the board, we always used to say it was, we offer a hand up, not a handout, because it was all about helping people become more sustainable and giving them the resources and tools and self-confidence that they need to do that. So YWCA is focused on equity and justice in our society overall. Our mission is eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. So that's the overall mission. We offer our services statewide. We support, the last couple of years, it's been almost 9,000 people that we've supported each year. And we have a diverse range of services that all really work together to help people overcome challenges and become more self-sustaining. And that we can talk about it more in detail later, but just at a high level, our services are housing. So we do emergency, transitional, and community housing. We have a sexual assault response center that provides 24/7 support to survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. We also have economic empowerment programs where we do things like financial counseling, home ownership counseling. We help people who are in a foreclosure crisis. We also provide workforce development type programs that are really targeted to women, entrepreneurship support, as well as youth development initiatives, all that within economic empowerment. And then we also have racial and social justice and advocacy programs where we're really focusing again on that equitable and just society, advocating for laws and regulations, as well as providing education.
That's very detailed, nice, good summary for us. So now I know time to time when I talk to you and then people before you or any of the board members. So I will also mention the way that I got involved with YWCA, and she's watching right now, Dr. Eileen Donnelly. She's a very good friend, and she's someone who actually helped me to connect with you guys, and I know she does a lot of things from her personal side as well. So different projects that you guys are working on. I know there are different things that every year there may be something more important than the others, and some projects are taking priority. So in terms of your current projects and the initiatives for year 2024, what are the things that you guys are working on?
Well, yeah, besides our the services that I just talked about, we're also looking at, we just created a strategic plan. So the board and the staff together created our strategic plan for the next 3 years. It was official as of last June for fiscal years 24 through 26. And there's a few strategic priorities that we called out in that. One of them that I would really focus on is how do we increase our housing security impact in the state. So we're already doing that, like I mentioned, emergency housing, transitional housing, community housing. How else? How can we provide more impact? Because there's a big issue with housing security, homelessness, affordable housing, not only in the state of Delaware, but across the nation. So one of the things we're looking at is potentially getting into permanent supportive housing. So how do we help people? It's interesting that you say, because we do normally, a lot of our programs now are, we help people, they may come back later for our services, but it's not necessarily that long-term support. However, in some cases, in order to stop chronic homelessness, some people, especially those with physical or mental health disabilities, need that more long-term support. So that's where we're looking at permanent supportive housing, which has proven to be successful across the nation. We've created a housing planning committee that just met for the first time a few weeks ago, looking at partnering in that space, not trying to do it ourselves. And how can we house more people? How can we try to help people become more sufficient long term? So that is one of our big projects that we're looking at. That's probably the biggest kind of change we're looking to make to increase our services. The other thing we're doing that is also in our strategic plan is increasing our advocacy efforts. So we've always been advocating in the space around our mission, but really trying to mobilize Delawareans to focus on legislation and policies that are going to help women and children, families across the state of Delaware. We actually now have advocacy alerts, and I don't know if we can pull that slide up, but we have advocacy action alerts that we're starting to create literally just this year, and people can go out and sign up so that if there's some kind of regulation, a bill that's going through the Senate or the House that we need some support on, they can sign up for alerts where they can call or email or write to their legislators and ask them
They
to
are
support.
running in the video loop, so there's a single picture, but we'll see if we can actually share the link, perhaps. Do we have that as a link on the website?
Yeah, I think you have there was a QR code and probably the link as well for action alerts. People can look for it later too, but it's and you can find everything that I talk about is out on our website. So
Melissa, one of the things with the housing, and it was an education for me several years ago, and I don't know if you guys are still having those issues. There's the permanent housing, and there is the transitional housing, as you mentioned. So now from YWCA standpoint, our focus is on the transitional one. Is that changing? Is that what
we're going to maintain our current services. So what we do, I'll give a little more detail about the housing if that works. So emergency housing is up to 90 days. So we do have, our Home Life Management Center in Wilmington has both emergency housing and transitional housing. Emergency housing can be up to, so we do it in 30-day increments. It can be up to 90 days. And then we can either help people either find permanent housing with our help or on their own. or they might move into transitional housing. And sometimes people go straight into transitional housing, which can be up to 2 years. Transitional housing, they're actually in a small apartment. In our home life management center, we have 10 1 and 2 bedroom apartments where they have a little kitchenette. They can they provide their own food. They're more stable than when they were in that emergency housing. So that we have 10 units there. We have 28 emergency housing units. And then the other thing that we do is community housing, and that's more where we help people either stay in their homes or find a new home, diverting them from the shelter system altogether. And we had, I believe it was around 200 households last year that we were able to prevent from moving into the shelter system or becoming homeless by helping them with those programs. People might hear the words diversion or rapid rehousing that we do there.
So the way that this is designed, I guess the structure is there, is addressing a specific group of individuals who may be going through trouble in their lives. So someone who is who's having that issue, how do they reach out to you? Like, how do they know to reach out to you?
That's a great question. And there's the advocacy alert, action alerts, if anybody wants to use that QR code. As far as how you can get into our shelter, there's actually, the main route is through centralized intake. And the number is 833-FIND-BED. Most of the shelters in the state of Delaware, based on the funding models that we have, people need to go through centralized intake. So you call that number, they actually know what all the different shelters are, what types of people that we can house. So from a YWCA perspective, we're a family shelter. So it's focused on housing either women with children, men with children. It could be a grandparent with a child, but it has to be a family unit for most of our units there. So they have to call centralized intake. Centralized intake would refer them to us. There is one other way, actually. We do have a few units that are set aside specifically for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. That does not have to be a family. That actually could be a single person, and they would go through our sexual assault response center to get into those particular rooms.
So I think the way sometimes we also from our business standpoint, we deal with we provide services to the patients, and our patients, they go through. They're all from different background, different family dynamics, and we do provide services for all insurances. And in some cases, even people with no insurance, there's a fee schedule at a lower level for those. So we are, and as you know, we have an office right in downtown, which actually got much bigger now. We used to have a smaller office there, but right now we are right in downtown with our primary care office with 16 exam rooms, and your office is pretty close to where we are there. Now, what I see there in that location specifically is how our demographics changes, who we provide services, and it becomes more than just the service itself. So providing the healthcare rather than understanding patients' social issues, financial difficulties, violence in family, domestic violence, and all those becomes part of the care that we are providing. And that's why also my appreciation for organizations like yours is at a really great level, because when we know that there are help out there available, it's just like it gives us some peace of mind. So, but what I see is where I was going to go with this. In some cases, I see that patients or people in this case don't know, because they're in that crisis situation, they don't know that these things are available to them. So, and I know we are maybe at full capacity right now, but then as we are able to reach out to more people, maybe we are able to do more with, with other things, and with the state's help and with the federal government's help, the organization can grow. Is that part of the plan for the future for you guys?
Yeah, definitely. So we have one of the things that we do have for all of our programs is we have case management. So we have people who understand all of the resources that are out there across the state, and people go through an intake process. So regardless of which program you're coming in, you're going to go through an intake process where we try to understand what struggles do you have, what is your background, what help could you possibly need, and then those case managers work across the organization and outside in other organizations with partners, with healthcare systems to try to get people the resources that they need. One thing that we were really lucky to get this year, we were all very excited about, is we got funding to have community health workers within our organization. So we actually have community health workers within both our sexual assault response center as well as our home life management center and our housing programs, where we can have people who are actually, focused on understanding more about Medicaid, about, dental assistance, everything, so that they can understand what our clients' needs are and then refer them to services. So that's something we were very excited. We actually had a community health fair this summer as well for the first time, and just had a bunch of partners there who clients could come in, whether they were already existing clients or people who from the community could come in and talk to the different resources and get the support that they needed. So that's definitely a big part of what we need to do. We want to look holistically at what their needs are. It's not just just housing or just counseling. It's what do they holistically need to get back on their feet.
Now, I know one of the biggest challenges probably in the organizations like yours is the financials. And so I'm not going to even ask you if you guys have issues with the financial issues, but what are the other challenges outside of financial things? What are the big challenges that you deal with day to day? And do you see there are any solutions, or if there's something that we can do to help in those cases?
Absolutely. And I'm happy to talk about financial challenges too, because
Sure.
all of us ask any nonprofit leader and they're going to go number one challenge funding. So I'm happy to talk about that too. But outside of funding, affordable housing is a huge issue right now. And I don't think anybody watching this is probably surprised about that, especially you. So, and it's not just Delaware, it's across the country. We have a shortage of over 19,000 affordable housing units in Delaware, and that comes from the Delaware State Housing Authority as of 2023. So, part of that is addressing homelessness, but part of it is also addressing those people who are what we would consider cost burdened or severely cost burdened. So, the equation for mortgages, rental units, et cetera, is that you shouldn't be spending more than 30% of your income, your total income, on housing, whether that be mortgage related costs or rental related costs. And the number and percentage of people who are paying more than 30% for housing is increasing in Delaware and across the nation. So if it's more than 30%, they're considered cost burdened. And if they're spending more than 50% on those housing costs, it's considered severely cost burdens. And those numbers are both increasing. And that's those people, and many of us probably know people who are one emergency away from losing their housing, whether it's a medical emergency or a car dying, big home purchases that they have to do, one emergency away from losing their housing. That the number of people in that situation are increasing. So that's a big challenge for us, and why we really want to focus on advocating for affordable housing legislation, not only for the legislation, but for the budgets. Like, how do we make sure that governors and everyone's basically the president, that they're putting the money into creating affordable housing where we need it, because that's the only way we can make sure that we're decreasing homelessness, is to make sure that people don't lose their homes.
And unfortunately, economy since after COVID, it's not on the right direction. Well, I personally am concerned with everything that's happening. One of the things that we discuss in this show, if you don't have any guests, usually Sean and we kind of just discuss different topics, the current topics, and between the economy and global affairs and healthcare related issues. But everything with the economy, as you said, like things are a lot more expensive today. And the other thing that I don't think we were used to this type of inflation before. So now there's an inflation, and people they either understand or they don't, but they feel it. So there is a reality of this impact, like regardless of um, whatever everyone says, there's a big issue on the economics, financial issues, and this is at every different level. And you know, someone who lived in a different country for 24 years, I was used to some of those things before, back in Turkey. So like Turkey still have this high inflation, and then they kind of go up and down. But in here, we were not used to any of those. In the last 25 years, I've been here, and other than last 3 years, I don't remember things being so expensive. So we did like one of the calculations that in one of our discussions, we did this mortgage calculation. Someone who used to pay $2,200 per month for the same everything with the interest rate changes, they were paying $3,200. So for the same level of principal, those things, of course, are contributing to probably what you guys are potentially going through. Now, this is supposed to be kind of like us just having like a just like an internal dialogue. But one thing that I cannot help but ask you, are you getting enough support from the local government?
Actually, in Delaware, that's one thing that's we get a lot of support from our legislators. And I saw you had a lot of them on, and I was like, oh, I know her, I know her, I know him. And really they engage with us and they give us a lot of support, which is fantastic. And Delaware is a small place. I actually personally live in Pennsylvania, but I've been working in Delaware for 28 years. So a lot of people know each other in Delaware, and that goes for the legislators as well. So anything that comes up, somebody on my team has a relationship with that legislator. We reach out, we ask for help, and they've been very supportive. I've actually had one-on-one meetings with quite a few of them. We've had people come over and take mission tours over at our home life management center, and conversations about challenges such as affordable housing, funding for sexual assault response center. Our VOCA funding is another one of our challenges, and they've been very, very supportive. So it's nice. It's nice that I can see them and
I was
feel like I can
hoping you
talk to
would
them.
say yes, because I also work with them very closely. So, and if you said no, I was gonna call them right after this.
Yeah, no, they're very, very supportive, actually. I appreciate it. We met Becca Cotto, who's my head of racial and social justice and advocacy. She and I have met with Lisa Blunt Rochester. I've met personally with Sarah McBride, Kyle Gay Evans. Like I just a lot of them. I think I just said
And
Kyle.
I know
Kyle Evans Gay. Yeah.
Lieutenant
So
Governor Bethany also is a very big supporter of YWCA as well. So, but again, like having them on board and understanding the issues and updating them is important. And anything that I can do from my side, I would be more than happy to communicate those issues with them if you need any help. Now, I know we have this annual breakfast once a year, and that's kind of like the big fundraising event for us for YWCA. So I feel like I'm part of YWCA, although
you
uh,
are part of
well,
YWCA.
I don't have any like active role. So, but I'm a big supporter. I would like to do more, but I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying. So, from in terms of getting help and raising funds, I know annual breakfast does a lot, but it's not enough by itself. Now, if I was just someone who wanted to support and not able to come to the breakfast events, how can those individuals help and support YWCA?
There's so many ways to support. I will really quickly though talk about our breakfast, because this year is our 20th annual celebration breakfast. So we're really gonna have a great celebration. So I do want to encourage people to try to make that. And you can actually, if you can't attend the breakfast in person, you can actually watch it online as well. We do live stream the breakfast. So, but there's so many ways to get involved. One thing I highly recommend is taking a mission tour. So if you're listening to me talk about what our services are and it's something you're passionate about or something you just really want to learn more about, you can sign up to do a mission tour, which you can go to ywcade.org. And you can either do a virtual tour, which we do, and usually we do every month, we do a virtual tour and an in-person tour. And either way, you're going to learn about all of our services. So the in-person tours are at the Home Life Management Center. We do talk a lot about our housing programs, but we also talk about all the other programs there, which actually do things. We have a healing space in the Home Life Management Center for our SARC program. We have a learning lab that our economic empowerment programs utilize there. So we talk about all of our programs and services there, and you can really get to know a lot and meet some of us personally so that you can understand how you can help. And we talk about things in there about there's volunteer opportunities, there's sponsorship opportunities. You can sponsor the breakfast. We have a walk coming up in June that we celebrate for Juneteenth. You can sponsor the walk. And Do More 24 is a huge event across Delaware where I think it's United Way and Spur Impact who lead Do More 24, and it's a 24-hour period from March 7th at 6 p.m. to March 8th at 6 p.m. where people can donate, and there's some matching gifts and some prizes depending on donations you get at different hours of that 24-hour period. So you can donate that way too. There's volunteer opportunities, facilitation opportunities. There's so many ways you can engage. Besides our website, you can follow us on social media. We're on most of the major social media channels, and people can also reach out info@ywcade.org and ask us questions or reach out to us that way as well. But there's a lot of opportunities to engage and support.
Very, very good. And I know we did something from United Medical side a couple of years ago. Our leadership team, we decided together to take our support to a different level. And with the partnership with my leadership team here, we are doing something on the personal side as well as from the United Medical side. And I think maybe some of the organizations, businesses who are trying to support in different ways, they may be modeling what we have, because that was kind of was a very efficient way to kind of have this being able to do something together in our organization in United Medical, but also, we are also able to be part of what you guys are doing there. I feel great about what we are doing with you. So hopefully maybe other businesses can do some of those in a similar way. And I would be happy to talk to some of them on your behalf if you ever need any help from us.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we love when groups come in to volunteer, and there's usually opportunities in all of our programs for volunteering opportunities. So yeah.
Melissa, you mentioned the touring and people understanding what services we have on the website. One of my initial interaction with our location in downtown was to see the setup and not knowing this exists already. It was already there. It was a huge surprise for me. So there are pretty much like independent units, apartments, because usually people who are going through some of these troubles, they are families and they have small kids, and the vast majority of our people that we are helping, they are female individuals with families, with kids. And for them to be able to, stay with their kids and getting that help in a setting in the way that YWCA has, it was an eye-opening for me. I'm like, okay, so we definitely need to be able to do more, and how we can get involved. Many of our providers, physicians, they are aware of the services and they try to help. But I think for individuals to kind of better understand the actual setup and see what's there, and how also, like, one of the things that different families, while they are there, they actually do things together with each meal time, and then maybe they are supporting each other as well. So it's an amazing setup that we have there, and I'm so glad that people like yourself who are taking this extra initiative, because it's not easy. Like if I mean, you were working at a bank and you probably took a pay cut, and but you want to do it because you know this is something that is very important for you personally. Now, if you can tell me a little bit on the personal side, your involvement with YWCA, are there other reasons or satisfaction that you have from what you do, and what actually motivates you to do what you are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I talked a little bit about that diversity, equity, and inclusion effort, but I think even though I said I worked at a bank for 26 years, the things that I love to do the most there, I led big groups and I enjoyed the jobs that I had, but I always on the side was leading mentoring programs, creating mentoring programs, leading DEI initiatives, doing different things. I led several women's groups there. And the whole thing about empowering women, empowering people of color, trying to help them be successful, it's just something that I love. I was actually on a call this morning where we talked about what brings you joy. And I said, what brings me joy is seeing other people succeed. And if I have a little part of helping them to succeed and have a better life, that's what brings me joy. So I think doing this, I had the opportunity to become the interim because I was very engaged. And when the prior CEO left, the board president, who I've known for years, called me to see if I would do it. And I was just like, wow, like this just really fits into what I want to do with my life at this point. And it's all about helping people, and the people who work here are amazing. It's just they dedicate their lives to helping people who are less fortunate, and they day in and day out they just amaze me. So having the opportunity to lead the organization and work with all of them every day, it's just awesome.
That's excellent. That's excellent. All right. Well, anything you would need from us that we can do differently for YWCA, not just me personally, not just United Medical, but the community. Any message that you would like to give for those who are out there who wants to get involved?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to thank you because you are a big supporter. Your organization is a big supporter. You personally are a big supporter. We are all extremely grateful for that. And what I would say is, to the community is get to know us. I would love to see people come to a mission tour, come to one or more of our events, volunteer, get engaged. I just think that if you get to know us, you're going to want to know more, and you're going to want to get involved. We're all very passionate about what we do. And like Kemal said, he got involved and he became very passionate about what we do. So I would love to see people get more engaged. And I would like to take a minute just to thank our staff, our board members. We have an amazing board of directors, and our volunteers, because they're the lifeblood of the organization, and they, what they do day in and day out to help support our services and help us sustain our organization is why we're here. So I just want to say thank you to all of them, as well as our donors, including you, Kemal. I think our donors are the ones who help us sustain, both from a government grants perspective, corporations, foundations, and individuals. It's what keeps us going.
Well, I want you to know that we are here for you guys, and anytime you need anything, we would like to help you as much as we can. And I want to make sure that those who are out there really want to do something meaningful. YWCA is one of those charities, foundations that is extremely efficient, meaningful, and we know that whatever we do with you has a lot more impact in the community that we live in. So thank you for what you do, and I'm sure we'll have you back at some time in the future. But until then, we'll see you again.
Thanks, Kemal.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, so Sean is gonna join me. So Sean, you haven't been in one of our participants.
I did it, so not in person. We had the virtual streaming here in the office for our employees during in the past year. So I was able to attend virtually, but in person I've yet to.
Yeah. So maybe this year is the 20th anniversary, apparently.
Mhm.
So we wanted to talk about a couple other things. One of the while we were going through this this discussion with Melissa, economic challenges, like
Sure.
people who are going through issues, financial issues, which is not helping them either because there's more demand and there's more work that they need to do. So that's one of the reasons that we discuss these topics, because we know that this is affecting everyone. So when we are out there, when we discuss, when we live our lives, uh, I actually become a better observer of what's happening around us, like situational awareness. Situational awareness in a way that you don't just see a person, you see the person maybe who's struggling with different things. So without going into the details of it, I just want to, just last Sunday, one of my, few times that I was in one of the grocery shopping, and I see this lady who's 95 years old. And I mean, I made that up. I don't know how old she was. She was old.
94.
She was 96, maybe. She was really, I can't tell that she was over 90. And she had to drive. So that means she was driving. That means she doesn't have help. So someone, like, I don't want my mom to do her own shopping at that age. I don't want her to drive on her own. She drove from her apartment, her condominium, I guess, and because there's not enough support. So I see that, and then I see all the issues with the family dynamics and who's supporting her, who's not supporting her. So then this may be a single mother with 4 kids. Then they're probably struggling how to actually make that payment. So you go to the mall and then you see this guy who's 79 years old and who's picking up this part-time job at a cashier because they cannot make their co-insurance, co-payments with their health insurances. So, and we see this more and more and more. Now, things that we discuss in some cases, it may be kind of like what we discussed, like today we are going to discuss about BRICS, right? So when we bring up this first time, there wasn't enough momentum around BRICS movement.
Yeah.
So now we are in a different situation. So do you want to kind of dive into that?
Sure. So yeah, see if I get a visual here as I just go to debrief us on it. But as Kemal mentioned, we had started tracking BRICS probably over 2 years. I think it was in 2022.
So it started with the global reserve, US dollar being the global reserve. And then around that discussion, we picked up BRIC and see where this was going to go.
Right. So from there, we knew that it was kind of in the early stages. However, in our initial research, we found out that it was actually in the early to mid 2000s that some countries started coming together to form that initial, the Brazil, Russia, India, China team, I guess you could say, to use an alternative currency on their global trade as opposed to using the US dollar, which was the standard reserve for so long. And I know a lot of people maybe initially didn't put too much attention towards it, saying it won't pick up momentum, it's not feasible, it'll sputter out after so long. But if you've been following the recent news in the past couple of years, even just this past 1 year, specifically, there's definitely been a gain of momentum with other countries joining the BRICS conglomerate, you could say. So abandoning that US dollar will definitely have an impact on people who, like in America, if you're using that as your day-to-day currency, if it's not being traded at such a volume that it normally was in the global scale, you will feel that impact on the ripple down. And that's kind of what we've been following closely now, as you'll see like Egypt most recently getting involved with adopting the BRICS. And also part of what we'll probably go into in a second here is, we know back when Russia attacked Ukraine, there was a sanction. So there was an economic attempt to kind of stall Russia's economy from the US, putting different sanctions, trade stoppages on that. However, China and Russia still trade between each other. Russia is still able to import or export, I forget which one it is. I know there's the ban on going one way versus the other, but still having that export, I believe it is, of I think it was over 400 billion, I want to say 425. So you're seeing that having them using an alternative currency from the US dollar is going to have a greater impact, because not only is it gaining momentum in the fact that they're trading a larger quantity, but the amount of trade they're doing in between each other has also increased now on a different currency. So even though they may have been previously using the US dollar, now using the alternatives, it's going bigger
So,
with a different rate.
exactly, and just want to kind of put this out there. So I think I did share this before. This is 2 years old. So when we felt the inflation first time with this Russian-Ukraine conflict, we want to see where dollar is going, and then the $34 trillion debt rate now, the ceiling that we have used to be 20 trillion end of 2019. So then we were saying that how are we going to actually get this? How are we going to close this gap? And then one of the things, like by printing more money. Well, we could do that because we are the global reserve, right? So then we said, okay, well, look, I mean, this may not be permanent. So here's like the treasury officials in the Obama, Trump, and Biden administration have cautioned that extensive use of financial sanctions could threaten the central role of dollar and U.S. financial system. This is 2 years old. So since then, this is now happening. So that time, BRIC wasn't that big, but today, with the numbers that what we know, it's about 41% of the world trade is going through these countries. Now there are a total of 10, I believe. 10 countries,
some
right?
of them are a bit smaller.
I'm sorry, 11 countries.
Yeah, so maybe their impact might not be as strongly felt. I know, like, I think it was Argentina who was in the plan of joining, but then when they had their most recent election, then they canceled that idea to go back. But saying that, I think it was 90% of the global trade is with the US dollar, but now if you look at the quantities that these countries who make up the BRICS are doing, should they all do a 100% switch abandonment from that US dollar to the alternative currencies, that's where you'll see the actual impact felt down the line. Because like obviously there's other trades where some countries will exchange a good. So if they're shipping out oil in exchange for this to pay off a debt, it's not always a straight paper currency. But those that are traded on paper currency term, if it's going from US dollars to an alternative, you're going to end up feeling that impact after that switch happens. So,
and when we open up these topics, and then these are discussions that we have around these topics, that it's something that's developing, right? So it's evolving. So then when we see China and Russia trade, 90% now is with their local their own currencies. Then we know that this is a big issue, right? So because that's number 200 billion is taken from that pie. Now it's going through. They're not utilizing the US dollar for that. This will have an impact because we have borrowed a lot more money than we could actually pay or we could afford. Now, when the time comes, we won't be able to perhaps meet those obligations. Then what's going to happen is, well, we'll try to borrow either more or we'll try to print more money. And both of those have bigger consequences, much riskier now than ever before. Now, I know there are news from England and Japan, if you would kind of go into that.
Go back to our video there. So at the beginning, you'll see that the UK and Japan both technically, by the definition terms, entering a recession now. So their economies having stalled and now on the downtrend. Alarming because those are ones who obviously are not in BRICS, for example. So is it the G5 or G7?
G7.
G7, yeah. So countries who are, relying more still on the US dollar as their main currency are now experiencing recessions. Not a good sign, but also take note, just as an indicator for the entire global market. I know whenever the US has an election year coming up, the entire global market is obviously impacted. Everything kind of like stalls for a little bit right prior to they see which way the election ends up panning out. And then from there, you'll see, you know, a significant either increase or decrease depending on what type of stocks, what type of policies are supported by that particular cabinet.
So part of the issue is this, and you know, you can actually apply this to almost everything. So let's say you have the power, right? So you are more powerful than, let's say, the person you work with, and then let's say they're half your size. So you beat them up. Like if you put too much on them, they're gonna die, like, right?
Yeah.
Or they're gonna hurt, then if they're not gonna be able to help you.
Sure.
If it's a country that you are working with, then you can actually control them by cornering them. What we used to call, there's a financial term called fair market value. So fair market value is, so let's say my not sponsored water bottle, right? So I don't want to sell this today. So I'm asking you to buy this from me. So, well, or you come to me and then you say you want to buy this from me and I don't want to sell it. So then I'm like, well, this is $34. And you're going to say, well, I'm going to give you $100 for this. Then I'm going to be like, well, I don't want to sell it. So I'm not motivated.
Yeah, you're holding out.
Right? So then you are now desperate for this. Okay. Now you are going to actually change your method and you are not going to actually just follow offering more. You're going to find other ways. And then maybe you'll stop trying to purchase this from me and then you'll go somewhere else. You'll find alternatives because you are desperate. That's the tension. So when there's a tension, then people are able to do different things. Organizations are able to do different things. Countries are able to do different things. Yeah. So this is why we are saying that you can't use financial sanctions and other things to get your way unfairly. If it's unfair, it's not going to get you anywhere. So this is now what we are seeing is we are seeing the results. As our dollar is not as valuable as it was before, then things are going to change. That 95-year-old won't be able to go to that store anymore. Won't be able to even buy a car perhaps, or won't be able to stay in her condominium. So that is, and that guy who works at the mall may need to pick up a full-time job because he's not able to afford all these irresponsible choices that were made for us. So when we are sending billions and billions to other countries and not knowing we are going to be able to get it, number one, and why we are doing it, number two, and we have our internal issues, we have to focus here. The focus has to be here. And every country needs to focus in their own. So I have another example for you. So you probably saw it in the news. Turkey actually now has a fighter jet. The reason they were pushed to do that is because they used to be part of the F-35 project with US and other countries, and then they kicked them out. They said, well, we are not going to sell you this, we are not going to give you the F-16s, we are not going to give you blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, well, I'll make it. So there's that motivation, that tension that creates that motivation. So tension, don't forget, tension always help your goals if you are motivated in the right way. So now they have their own. Now, it may not have the full impact, but it will. So their drone system is number one in the world. How did they do it? It's because they weren't able to buy them.
Yeah, no other choice.
Right? So this is what happened to us with Christiana Hospital. So the only reason we own a surgery center is because Christiana Hospital made our life hell. So they hired our physicians, surgeons, they canceled our agreements, and then we have to figure out a different alternative and different ways to survive. So all these things are affecting us at the end of the day. So one of the reasons that BRICS is important is we have to kind of watch this very closely to see where this is going. So I think things are going to be a little bit out of control for us in terms of the global currency.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's interesting you say, because I know there's like an analogy too of like having that happy medium. So say like a country, it's not ideal, it's not the optimum what they really want, but it's not terrible enough where they're gonna say, all right, we have to go find something else. So if they stay in that happy medium, things will continue on. But say like you add in these sanctions or whatever, and it pushes them to like, this is just intolerable, we have to get out of our current situation.
Right.
That's where you're
Yes.
kind of giving them that nudge that you're saying enough tension where they'll seek an alternative. So
So the balance, there has to be a good balance if you want things to have longevity.
Yeah.
That you want things to be long-term fair, just like anything that we do in life. So now the thing is, it's affecting us. So some group of people are making these decisions, and it's affecting the way that we live. And that's why getting involved and understanding what's happening is important from our point. So the local elections were actually not local elections.
Delaware, yeah.
Election 2024, but especially in Delaware, it's actually getting a lot of momentum there as well. So we have listed people there already for U.S. Senate. There's William Taylor. Actually, I don't know if he's watching it, but he's not coming back to us. Although he's the one, right? We are friends on Facebook,
Yeah,
but
he's
not
kind of
really
funny
friends.
thing.
So because he didn't come back to our invites. So Mike Katz was with us already. He's running as independent for U.S. Senate. Lisa Rochester will be with us sometime in the future. Eric Hansen is another Republican who's running primarying William Taylor. We couldn't find his cell phone or his phone, so we have invited him through emails, but we'll see. The Congress is taking a different turn between, I believe, my personal opinion, Colin Davis is going to drop out of the race, most likely. And the rumor is that Eugene Young is planning to maybe leave his current job to focus on the election. That's going to probably bring a lot of tension to Sarah McBride on the Democrat side. And the Republican side, we have Lee Murphy and Danielle Hall. Danielle Hall was with us, but Lee Murphy is nowhere to be seen. Maybe he'll join us at some point. And do you want to cover the governor and lieutenant governor?
Yep. So our governor, as we mentioned, Bethany Hall Long, running for Democrat. We also had Matt Meyer on the show. Both of them were able to join. Kathy Jennings, we saw that name mentioned, not been in touch. Have not heard back from her. So still listed
Isn't he
there.
our attorney general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't think she's running.
well, it was mentioned on the one Ballotpedia, but again, we can see we're not sure though. That isn't 100% certain confirmed, but it's reliable enough. And then our lieutenant governor, Kyle Evans Gay, and then Sherry Dorsey Walker, both of which have joined us. There were two other names again mentioned on that Ballotpedia, but neither of them were initially mentioned back since we started covering this. I don't know if they're late entries.
There will be some. There may be some other entries, but I know that. So Sarah and Eugene Young are gonna probably have a pretty not a close one because Sarah's gonna win, but I think Eugene is gonna put a lot of pressure, which may help her too because now she's gonna feel like there's more tension, so then she has to work more.
Well,
I mean,
there you
she's
go.
already working,
You
but
don't
she
wanna
may
be
need
in that happy medium.
right.
Yeah.
So maybe but I think the interesting one is going to be between Bethany and Matt Meyer, and I think in the next couple of months we'll see something in that. Hopefully, it's all the best for Delaware. So I know we have our Bariatric Friday events. What else do we have today?
So Bariatric Friday, you will be traveling the next 2 weeks. So I think it's the second week that you're going to be having the dean of your college
Yes,
join for a live session. So
my college is the oldest university in Turkey, and it's the first one in Ottoman Empire. So I'm a big proud of being from
a lot of
UCA.
history books there. History department goes crazy.
Well, but like it's a huge deal for me, like being from that type of college. and also now having our dean to join on call. It's a good deal.
Yeah, definitely. And that is the second week. We're not sure if it will be on the Friday per se, but sometime during that week.
Yeah.
Once the date is finalized, obviously we'll be able to post that on the upcoming events.
All right.
And then, yep, and then into March, we have some more political figures joining once you return back. So we have a lot still to come in the spring.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching us, and then we'll be back with Dr. Erkan in a couple of minutes. Until then, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.